Your alumni love helping students and fellow graduates, but they simply don't have time to attend every event, answer every call, or learn yet another online platform. With Protopia, making an impact is easier than it's ever been before. Ever. There's no new app to sign up for or use in our already busy lives. Students, alumni, or even staff can quickly ask for advice or networking via a simple form, email, or text. Protopia's artificial intelligence searches the institution's existing alumni data to find the best experts that are the most likely to assist based on experience, availability, location, and other factors. Each matched alum receives a direct, blind email to ask them to help, giving alumni full control over if and how they want to respond, whether that's by email, call, or a virtual meeting. And if it's not a good time, Protopia's AI simply reaches out to the next alum until the question has been answered. The student receives advice right into her email inbox and is coached to engage the alum to grow her professional network. Finally, our rich dashboard lets staff follow along, view detailed engagement analytics, and access updated alumni data. Protopia. Simple for them, simple for you.
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome. Thanks so much for listening to Alumless World for the 24th of January, 2025. This is the Educating on the Importance of Alumni edition. And yeah, it's our first ever episode of Alumless World. On the show, we're going to talk about constituent engagement strategies and education advancement from a global perspective. So on the regular Alumless broadcast, our topics and discussions are very US-centric. And on Alumless World, we're going to try to take a broader view of advancement and talk about how colleges, universities, international schools, independent schools are working to build a culture of engagement and philanthropy. I'm joined by my fantastic Alumless World co-host, Nicole Kempton. Hey, Nicole, what's up?
Hi. How are you today?
Good to see you. Thanks for being on the show. It's an exciting road that we are about to go down on, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. It's finally here.
Nicole and I are both finally here. Nicole and I are both consultants with Chris Marshall Advancement Consulting. We've done projects with over 200 colleges, universities, secondary schools, nonprofit organizations, and we offer completely customized solutions for advancement strategy. I live in the United States. Nicole is based in London, and we're going to publish a new episode of Alumless World every other Friday at 11:30 a.m. GMT. So similar to Alumless, we're going to broadcast a 30-minute show on LinkedIn and YouTube, and then we'll have an additional 30-minute bonus segment available on the Alumless World podcast feed. So you'll be able to subscribe to that podcast, and we appreciate you very much adding us to your feed. And we're grateful for Max Leiston and the team at Protopia for being our Alumless World presenting sponsor. So we're going to bring out Dr. Maria Gallo shortly. But before we do, I want to bring out, well, you already can see him. He's there on the screen. He's been there all along. But it's CMAC founder and CEO, Chris Marshall. Hey, Chris, what's up?
Hey, Ryan and Nicole. So excited for this. I can't wait to see the magic that you guys do.
Oh, it's going to be magic. All right. So what do you think about this whole Alumless World idea, and what should listeners expect?
Short answer to this is I think around the world there are so many great ideas that we see coming out of shops. And the other, let's 2 points. One, around the world, shops are in very different evolutionary stages relative to what's happening in the United States. You have some places who are sort of just starting to think about this. Others have been, it's been a couple decades. In the U.S., it's been over 100 years about some of these issues we're facing. But point two is really important. What I have found that some of the smaller, newer shops are the most innovative and entrepreneurial and do things that some of us back here in the States can learn from because we've done it a certain way. In a lot of cases, a lot of these international programs don't have established, deeply entrenched traditions. And when you have those here in the U.S., it's hard to make change. So when you're a new program or in an early evolutionary stage, you have the chance to do whatever you want, whatever's right. I love what comes out of these kind of programs, and I think we can learn a lot from it. So I'm so psyched you guys are doing this, and we'll have twice a month have views from around the world of people to learn from, and vice versa. It goes both ways as well. What's happening in the U.S. can be applied and scaled appropriately, but I do think there's lots we can learn from what's happening in some of these shops at earlier stages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm incredibly excited to do a lot of learning on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's so much I don't know from how, whether it's independent school advancement leaders or colleges and universities around the world, how they're thinking about alumni engagement. How much should it be connected with philanthropy, right? I think for some institutions, it's a different conversation around philanthropy. But we'll explore all those topics and more. I think, Chris, you're going to hang out in the green room to sort of
take it away,
maintain some quality control here. Yeah.
I'm going to be on the
we're
back
going to
end.
bring out.
Nicole does a good job because she's her first time hosting. I know she's
that's what's.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll say goodbye and thanks again to both of you and to Maria, our first guest. I'll be backstage listening. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. All right, my friend. Well, it's great to, talk about advancement around the world with you. I've been thoroughly enjoyed our time together already, over the last year, partnering with you on different projects. Let's do a little bit of table setting, though, for listeners. Nicole, maybe just share a bit about yourself and what you think about, Alumless World, what people can expect. And then I guess I'll add a few thoughts from there.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I am so excited that we're doing this. We've been talking about it for a little while now. It was your brainchild, really, and I'm just here for the ride. But as you mentioned, I'm currently based in London, and I am the London office of Chris Marshall Advancement Consulting. And this is my second tour here. I've been here for about 18 months now. And prior to that, I was in Seoul, South Korea for about 3 years. And before that, I was with my alma mater, Duke University, in a variety of roles, including running a Board of Trustees task force on activating the global alumni network. And so global alumni engagement is something that I am very, very passionate about. And I've lived in China, Hong Kong, Korea, and London, and I've had the privilege of being a volunteer for Duke in each of these places. And I've also been an international student. I got my master's from University of Hong Kong. And now through our consulting practice, I'm having a chance to peek inside a lot of different institutions around the world. Which has been a great learning experience. And so I've seen the sector from a bunch of different perspectives, and I'm really excited to dig into our conversations with global advancement leaders over the next few months and years, hopefully, if this continues. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot, and I know that you are as well. So I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring out Maria here in just a second and keep the conversation moving forward. But yeah, I went to graduate school like you overseas in Australia. And since I did that, maintained a lot of connections over in that part of the world. So I'm excited to explore a lot of conversations with advancement leaders in Asia Pacific, as well as over in Europe and elsewhere. I know we're actually talking, I think, later this morning with folks who live over in Africa, a particular potential guest for the show. So we're really going to try to bring it here with the global perspective. And we thought, of course, that Dr. Maria Gallo would be the best person to kick off a new podcast series with. We're thrilled to welcome her today. Dr. Maria Gallo. Maria is the founder of KITE, which is Keep in Touch Education. And she's a research fellow at the Trinity Business School. I think, Maria, normally you are over in Ireland, but now at present you are in Canada. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm just here for a short visit, and then I'm back to Dublin to my work there. So I spend a lot of time going back and forth. It's great. We are all citizens of the world now, aren't we? I was also an international student, so I think we all have that in common. Did my doctoral studies abroad. So I think it's at the University of Sheffield. So I think it's really great that we can all do that and just be in different places. Wonderful.
Yeah.
It was a great place to start my own journey at the University of Queensland Business School. I did an internship there in graduate school. I learned my first bit of administration. But Maria, my career started back overseas. You've had an incredibly inspiring journey through education, alumni engagement, and into leadership. Let's maybe set the stage for listeners for our conversation today. Could you just maybe just share a little bit about what first inspired you to dedicate your professional life to advancing alumni relations? Was there a pivotal moment or experience that kind of got you set forth on this path?
I think for me, Ryan, it was really when I graduated from the University of Toronto many moons ago, and I am Canadian. I was one of those people who got a job at the university immediately. So I was very lucky. It was the 1990s, and a lot of people didn't get jobs right away, including a lot of my friends. And I realized that as I worked in alumni relations, as I was doing at the time, and in fundraising, I realized that there were a lot of connections that could help my friends get jobs, but they felt that they were alone and they were out in the world. And I thought, how can I bring them back in the fold so they could start to see all of these great connections? And as I made my way to move to Ireland, which is what I did a few years later, I realized I wanted to study this area and actually start to understand better how that relationship between alumni and their alma mater. And that's what I did. And that really just, I think, ignited the passion to say, for any folks who decide that they're going to graduate from university, take that time. It's a huge amount of sacrifice, time, energy, and, financial resources to go to university. So they should be getting more than just the piece of paper. And, Anne-Marie Bathmaker talks about the degree generation, that there's all these people who are put under pressure by their parents to go to university, and they think it's the piece of paper at the end. So they might be first in family to go to university. They might be international students going to university, and they deserve to have much more than just that degree, but actually they have networks and they have opportunities that just kind of go on and on and on. And that's what I wanted to be able to share with people. And that's the passion I bring to my work.
You founded Keep in Touch Education, which, with a mission of unlocking alumni potential. Could you share a little bit more about KITE, its vision, and how making an impact on educational institutions globally is sort of important for your organization?
Sure. I realized very early on when I moved to Europe that alumni-ness was quite new. I've been in Ireland for over 20 years. And so I really wanted to be able to have an organization that KITE I founded in 2017. And I really wanted to have people to become aware, so individuals to become aware of their alumni status, but also very importantly, that organizations and institutions could start to see the value of alumni and alumni potential. So how could alumni help the organizations with their mission, with their goals, with their strategies? And so that's what I've had the privilege to work on. I've worked with clients from in over 20 countries, governments and universities and agencies, to look at both how alumni in the traditional sense, in the university sense, but also alumni in the non-traditional sense, and even diaspora of organizations, and how they can actually help to maximize the impact for themselves, for the organizations that they're connected to, and also for the communities that they want to serve.
I love the idea of, alumni-ness, right? And the stickiness of the idea, and how important it is to introduce it early on as a key cultural aspect. And, the work of your book, you're really kind of digging into those most basic building blocks, right? Which is sort of making sure there's clear education on the importance of it, right? On the importance of alumni to the institution, and the institution to alumni. Nicole, you had the opportunity to live in Asia Pacific as well as over in Europe. What have you noticed about the global trends in alumni engagement? Have you come to see it from those two vantage points?
Well, I think I'll echo a lot of what Maria just said, because it's spot on. And I think when you're talking about alumni engagement and this idea of alumni-ness, the fundamentals are similar, but the context is quite different outside of the US, right? So I think the importance of strong alumni networks is only growing, and a lot of institutions are realizing that alumni can contribute a huge amount of value. I mean, there's this enormous mountain of human capital kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting to be activated, whether that's for the purposes of philanthropy, which a lot of institutions now in Europe and the UK are have philanthropic pressures that they didn't have before, right? But I think also to contribute to the student experience, to be brand ambassadors. I mean, there's just, we all know there's 100 different ways that alumni can contribute value to the community and also derive value for themselves throughout their lifetime. And I think a challenge for a lot of institutions outside the US is, resources, and also that their alumni tend to be more globally dispersed. And how do you get their attention? How do you tell them about all the wonderful things that you have to offer? And at the same time, inspire them to be involved and, contribute as a volunteer and a donor. And I would also say, leading up to our conversation today with Maria, is one of the things that comes up in almost every conversation that I have with leaders outside of the US is the importance of being able to show the value of alumni engagement to the institution, and to make that case that there is something there that needs investment and that needs cultivation. And it's part of why I'm really glad that Maria is with us today, because I think a lot of the principles that she talks about in her book, which is fantastic, are so relevant both to the alum as they go through their alumni journey, but also, when we're thinking about what's the value of alumni engagement to an institution, and how do you make the case that you need resources in order to be able to do it well.
Yeah. Well, great segue, Nicole. Let's talk about your book, Maria, The Alumni Way. It was sort of described, I think, by you and others, right, as a roadmap for maximizing alumni potential. What inspired you to write it, and what are the key messages or takeaways that you hope resonate most for readers?
I wanted to write the book for alumni themselves, for students, for their parents, but also for alumni professionals or people that were maybe teetering on, being alumni curious. And that seems to be a broad audience. So when I brought that to the publisher, they said, well, that's a lot to kind of, fit into one book. And I said, well, I'm hoping that the topic can, of alumni potential and about how, taking alumni on this journey about their alumni-ness, being, all those areas that they can actually be in of themselves. And then, take them on a journey so that they can find out, well, how can they build their network? There are exercises in the book. There are reflective questions for all those different audiences so that they can get a lot out of the book. They can feel energized that they have this transformational potential, or they can, nudge others to have that transformational potential. I always found that sometimes it's easy to get very tired around alumni relations work. It's tiring business. It's a lot of do all the time. And so a lot of people who've read the book and who's kind of given me some feedback have said, this has really energized me to remind me why what I do is so important. And usually the first thing that I would say to alumni professionals and to alumni themselves is, your alumni status is really important. And your alumni work is really important. So your connections are really important. Making connections for alumni is really important. And I think this, going back to what Nicole said about value within the institution, once alumni professionals can actually start to reignite their excitement about the importance of their work, they can start to make that infectious throughout the whole institution. Infectious in a good way, so that we're actually getting them to really see that they are impassioned about the work that they do, and then others, leadership, those in senior leadership in particular, can actually see the value of keeping this network of people that are all over the world involved. They are the ambassadors, and I've often talked about, they embody the values of whatever the institution that they have studied in or they have spent time with. And that's immensely important for our institutions, but also for, alumni themselves to say, yeah, I embody all this stuff that my institution, stands for. And, that's really exciting. And I'm going to maximize that network. That was the reason.
Yeah,
So
well, it's awesome. I love how your book obviously has multiple audiences,
mm,
and like the
Mhm.
primary audience is just about everyone, right? Reminding them that, the opportunity exists to live in a way that's sort of a different paradigm where you remain connected with your university as a graduate, as an alum, using that lens to kind of propel forward and create opportunities. And I think it's fantastic. When you have conversations with alumni professionals and other advancement leaders, what are some of the challenges you're hearing over and over again, right, in this sort of present moment? How might these challenges differ, of course, from those in the conversations you're having with administrators in the United States?
well, I mean, it's going to be no surprise, Ryan and Nicole, that alumni engagement, how do you measure alumni engagement, still
Mhm.
comes up as an issue over and over. And I think this is really across the board. People are trying to find unique ways. And it's mostly because they need to report to the powers that be that are funding them to be able to, argue for their resources. That's a really important point. And because it's not so much linked to fundraising outside of the US in some cases, alumni
Mhm.
relations is sometimes seen as a nice to not have, not a need to have. So trying to convince senior leadership is a big one. The other one that I think is quite unique is that there are a lot of academics that are directly involved in alumni relations work outside of the US. So they have, as a faculty member, they're assigned to work on building the alumni network. And I
Mhm.
think that's a really unique place. They come from a really unique perspective. And some of the research I've done before is how students and new graduates love to go to their faculty members, love to go to academics and ask them for advice afterwards. So when you have someone who's directly involved in alumni work, there's a really interesting synergy that can happen. So I've had a lot of conversations with these very unique group of alumni professionals and how they can kind of leverage their position as faculty and how that can help. And also encourage them to consider doing some research in the area because there still is a dearth of research around alumni relations that we could all learn from, hearing their examples and, getting their research from different countries.
It's interesting that you talk about that very specific group of academics who are involved in alumni engagement. And I think again, going back to what Chris said at the top of the hour, like that's something that I think a lot of advancement staff at US universities would kill for, right? Is to have faculty who are actively engaged in the mission of alumni engagement, right? So I mean that's a unique position to be in. So Maria, let's talk a little bit about alumni expectations and kind of what you've observed in your travels across Europe. We know that expectations for alumni can vary really differently across cultures. What have you observed with all the institutions that you've worked with?
So it's really interesting. So I had the opportunity. I've really worked across a lot of European countries in particular. So it must be, and I just finished a workshop last month with in Estonia with 15 different countries there, represented. And what was really interesting was that largely alumni expect nothing. So they receive their high expectations in North America for after people graduate. And in a lot of cases, still in Europe, there is this idea that, well, I've got the degree and I move on with my life. And so what alumni professionals find themselves doing in Europe in very unique ways and very innovative ways is trying to build that alum from day one strategy. So they're really trying to get those students from the day they start to really start to educate them so that they have expectations when they leave, that they start to see the value in staying connected. And because a lot of these are public universities, in some cases, some universities don't even charge tuition. So therefore, there isn't a sense that there was a lot of investment in the same way. So it is really just saying, well, we are something that is an investment. We are an investment. Staying connected with us is valuable, and that we have a network that can help you for your career, for your life, for your interests. And so they do this in a lot of really unique ways. But I think that they're starting from nothing, and I think that that's an interesting place because then they can shape the kind of expectations, and that's a really unique and exciting place to be.
Mm-hmm.
You just sort of hit on one of the key differences, right? Episode 1, first half hour, expectation setting, right? Alumni, graduates of non-US based universities just don't have the expectations of their alma mater to be providing value for them after graduation. And how do you sort of create that, right? And one of the reasons for that, if there's multiple, is the idea that education was free, right? So there's not necessarily, maybe it wasn't always so, like in Australia or the UK, it was free for a while and now it's not, right? Things change, but as a result, like the culture shift is a long time coming, I would say. But Maria, when you speak about the concept of alumni potential, it's a phrase that you've used more than one. Maybe we can break this one down a little bit. What does it mean for both the individual alum and the institution they're connected to sort of realize alumni potential, and why is this concept so critical in today's world?
I believe that every alum has the opportunity to try to reach their alumni potential, to try to maximize the experience that they can have, the connections and the networks that they can have by being creative. I'm often reminding people that they don't need to go it alone. So I spend a lot of time doing workshops for recent graduate students and alumni, and I tell them, when you graduate, you are not alone. You actually are connected to thousands, potentially hundreds or thousands of different people, and that you need to remember. But in order to connect with them, you need to be open to doing it. You need to be curious, and you need to be very kind. I always talk about kindness. So this is not an entitlement. It's not a sense of entitlement. You have to, in building relationships, we need to have a sense of kindness. And that's how the best way for someone to be able to build their alumni potential on an individual basis. And that allows them to build their, and Nicole mentioned this earlier, their human capital, their social capital. So, alumni have both bridging and bonding social capital. So they have, bonding social capital, those that are directly, they're connected within their course. Maybe they're connected to by their year of graduation. They might have done some, shared experiences with those particular students, now graduates, but they also have all this bridging social capital that sometimes people forget about. They're connected to all the other engineers that graduated, or all the other architects or marketing graduates, etc., and that they have these bridges that they can cross intergenerationally across disciplines, and that's a huge amount of magic that they can do. And then, of course, there's the opportunity of the potential for the institutions. I think this is an education and a convincing argument, much more for those outside of the US and Canada. So, because I feel that there's too much of that coupling that still happens around philanthropy, that philanthropic, financial giving that still happens. Whereas, there's still that magic that's outside of North America, that where we can say, well, alumni can offer you so much more. Everything from across the entire student lifespan. You can get alumni that can be on touch points across, from prospective students to recruitment to the student experience to, job placements, you name it, and alumni can be involved across that experience. And once people have opened their eyes, they're like, oh, that's a huge amount of potential to involving alumni. So then there is that kind of that second broker. And of course, the third being how the alumni potential in our community. So what are our alumni doing out there? How can that be inspirational for others? How can we create relatable role models for other people because of the work that people are doing in their communities? That's alumni potential in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Yeah, I think so much going on there. And, I feel like we've got a long way to go to kind of bring the narrative of alumni-ness and the importance of it and into the coupling of it with philanthropy, right? I mean, maybe that is one of the key limiting factors in terms of its growth potential in other places, because the culture of philanthropy is perceived to be too it's non-existent, right? And too difficult to create because it's more broadly societal, right? And so therefore, how do we raise the importance of alumni engagement across those key performance areas, right? And sort of make sure everybody knows its importance for enrollment, right? It's important for not just the prospective students at their, classic 18 or going back to graduate school, but later on in life as lifelong learners, right? And exploring what that means. But all right, so we're going to put pause on our conversation with Maria. We're going to head over and record our bonus segment for the podcast edition of the show, because we have already bumped up against our 30-minute time window. Nicole, that went really fast, huh?
It really did. It really did. We could talk all day, I think. So yeah, we're
going to keep the conversation going. But before we do, Nicole, who is our next guest?
Yeah, so next we have the fabulous Mandy McFarland, and she is the CEO of an organization called Educate Plus, and they have over 2,000 members across Australasia, and their mission is to they're committed to serving, supporting, and assisting professionals in pursuit of educational advancement in schools and colleges, universities, professional training institutes, and various consultancies associated with our industry. And so huge remit, and certainly someone who will be able to tell us all about trends in that part of the world. So really looking forward to that conversation in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, they do this amazing conference every other year, which I think Maria and we've both been to the Educate Plus conference. I went to one in Auckland some years ago, and man, what a great conference they put on for practitioners in that part of the world and elsewhere. All right, so we'll take a break. Likely you'll be hearing a word from our presenting sponsor, Protopia, if you're listening to us on the podcast edition, and we will be back in just a minute. But thanks for listening to Alumless World. Back in 2 weeks with Mandy McFarland.